Welcome to the Nuclear Power Institute's The Path of Most Persistent podcast. The podcast highlighting individual stories of persistence, community outreach, and inspiration to support the continuing and emerging nuclear science and technology needs across the state of Texas. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Howdy, welcome to another episode of the Path of Most Persistence podcast. Today, we are joined with Rebecca Hernandez. She is the Nuclear Engineering and Science Center's Reactor Supervisor. Today's date is June 17th, Thursday, and we're so happy to have you here with us, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your time, and it's fun to have you on the other side of the interview and not as an interviewer this time.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here. Yes, it's very interesting being on the other end of the spectrum. So I'm looking forward to the interview.
Great. So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? For example, a little bit about your background, especially your role as a nuclear reactor supervisor, what that means, and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, just a little bit about myself personally. I'm originally from Navasota, Texas. I'm not sure if anyone knows where that is. It is a little bit south of here, heading towards Houston. I've lived there all my life, except for the last 10 years. I've lived in Bryan, Texas. I come from a family of 4 siblings. I'm the third child, so I have that middle child syndrome. So my mom and dad, my mom actually has a master's degree, and my dad only has actually a 6th grade education. My mom has a master's degree in theology, and my dad had his own business all of my life. He did welding and fabricating and did a lot of major contracting jobs around the area for banks and the Ford company and different things like that. So I got the opportunity when I was younger and growing up to work for him at his office and his shop. So I also learned from my mom and my dad, and kind of a little bit of blend of both of them together, I would like to think. My mom's mom had 10 children, and my dad's mom had 9. So I come from a very large family. So I'm very proud of that. We are Polish, in case I know my last name is Hernandez, so I think everyone gets thrown off by that. But I'm actually full-blooded Polish, and proud of it. I went to college at Sam Houston State University. Only 2 out of the 4 of us siblings went to college. The other 2 actually have their own businesses. One of my siblings, my youngest brother, is a musician. He's a blues musician. And my older brother has his own ATV business. So all of the siblings are very successful in different areas. And I just think it's very interesting given the background we came from, and that my dad only has a 6th grade education and my mom has a master's degree. It's a very good childhood, a lot of great memories of that. But I did work full-time and go to college at Sam Houston State. Actually, I started out with an accounting degree track, but I was working full-time, so I was driving back and forth to school every day, going back to work, and I was actually raising my oldest son at the time, actually by myself. So I would drive him back and forth to school. So I did a lot of driving around for, it was probably a good 10 to 12 years at that time. So definitely speaking about some persistence there and perseverance. When I look back at it now, I'm like, I don't know how I did that, but I certainly made it through. And definitely in that area, I would just say, keep on pushing and just don't quit. Eventually you'll reach the end. Eventually, just don't give up. You might have some stops and starts, but just don't give up. So I graduated from Sam Houston State University, actually with a business administration degree. At one point, they were like, you have about 7 classes for your accounting degree or 2 for business administration. And I'm like, let's just change that a little bit because I'm ready to be done. And it was really a good choice for me because I feel like that opened my world up to a lot of options. And I really feel like that is also what helped bring me to where I am at today. I do hold the position of Reactor Supervisor now. I've held various different positions in the public and private sector up until now, which has included, supervisory, accounting, customer service, parts and warranty, inventory, just a lot of different areas that I've really honestly worked for years to ensure that I've done a little bit of everything. I really try to look at things as one great big picture, and how it comes together. I really contribute that thought process probably to my dad, because that's the type of thinker that he is. And I don't know, should he have had a higher education? Who knows what he could have done? But I definitely feel like I kind of model after him in that way. But I like to just kind of think of things as a whole. And I think that's really what brought me to where I'm at today. And just a little bit, you had asked me just kind of a little bit about the position that I'm in right now. What specifically were you hoping to for me to answer on that?
Really what maybe a day in the life of kind of looks like, but also, knowing you prior to this role, we knew you were in business administration and the business office within T's for the Nuclear Power Institute. And so we were co-workers in that capacity. And so going from that role into a reactor supervisor is such a different change, especially just a change of pace. So I wanted to know kind of what brought you to that conclusion that this was the right step for you.
Well, the position came open, or I knew it was going to be coming open, and I just had a thought, well, I've supervised before, and I've done things in the realm of like operations and that type of thing before, and I thought to myself, surely it can't be too terribly much different. And, I thought, well, I'll just ask, just ask, hey, what about me for this position? And, I just was raised with a mentality that you can do anything that you put your mind to. And, I think, you could try anything, and you definitely should always try to expand your horizons and try to grow. And, it may be something that's meant for you, and it may not be, but you're never going to know until you put yourself out there. So I've really grown to a point in my life where I'm not afraid to put myself out there. The least someone can say is no. And someone very special and important in my life that I work with taught me that. Thank you, Dr. McDevitt. The most someone could say is no. And the most that may happen is, it may not work out, and then you can move on to something else. But a day in the life of a reactor supervisor, I'll have to say, in observing the position before it was even, really put out there and offered to me, before I even interviewed for it, there were times where I thought, can I do this? Is this me? Kind of the normal things that run through your head. Can I do this? Is this me? I think we all do this with anything that we're doing. And there were times where I was like, I don't know, and then I would talk to those around me, and I definitely contribute the faith and the confidence that others had around me, the faith that they had in me, to just to my own self-confidence in moving forward. I don't think there was a time where I was ever like, no, I'm not going to do it. It was just a strange and interesting pulling towards it. And honestly, no matter what I tried to do to tell myself, no, well, I just flew into that position like a freight train. And you know what? It's been the biggest blessing. And, it's probably one of the only positions I've ever held where someone can ask me, hey, how do you like your new position? And my responses have always been, it's very fun. It's, engaging. I'm learning so much. I'm constantly on the move. I'm constantly working with customers. I'm taking their requests. In doing that, what I'm doing is, taking the incoming requests and assisting them, the customers, and, the activity at which they want to irradiate something, the mass at which they want to irradiate it, if it's possible, the schedule, who we have on staff for that, if it's going to work out. And then once we run those samples, we have to repackage those things and get them back out to the customer. So there's a whole lot that goes into that. Plus, we're supervising the students to help us do that. So it's quite a big job. I knew it was going to be a growing position, but I think if you go into something knowing that, then it takes a lot of the fear out of that, for you. And I think there's growing in everything, and as long as you can kind of take the fear out of it, just kind of just jump right in and know that there are going to be times where you may not, you're going to have a learning curve. You're not going to be perfect at everything. Someone might have to teach you something. You may have to teach someone else something. As long as you're open to that, it's going to be a good journey. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to eat some humble pie some days, but it's a good journey. It's a good journey.
So if I could, hi, Rebecca, and thanks for calling me out in a moment. But I also was just going to ask or make a comment and then ask, because, we've worked together now for a couple, 2-3 years or so. And you were part of the business office, and then we were talking about Reactor Supervisor. I think I was probably more aware of what you did not know than you were, and that's okay, because the strengths that we saw, basically half the Reactor Supervisor job you were already really well qualified for. The other stuff, you've had to learn not just what a neutron is, but what it does, and all kinds of things about the science and engineering side of things. I was curious about your view of maybe the hardest things you've had to overcome, and what you didn't know that you know now, and maybe the most fun things you've had to overcome that you didn't know were even coming as part of the job. But one of the things that a former boss of mine gave advice to me was, you need to be flexible. You need to be willing to learn and new. So I knew we were kind of handing you a fire hose and saying, here, take a drink.
Yeah.
But maybe comment a little bit about on the surprises that came once the opportunity opened up.
Okay. Well, I kind of surprised myself, because the things that I thought would be the hardest for me, like those things that I observed that I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that, have come the easiest and are the most fun, such as it's really any of the physical things, loading the samples, repacking, calculating what we're irradiating, the activities, learning about the isotopes. That has been so much fun. Those are things I really didn't know anything about, but I have a great mentor, several great mentors. So that actually has come a lot easier to me. And then also learning how to operate the reactor, that I think, given the confidence that you guys all had in me, and I knew y'all were kind of handing me that drink and saying, here, we know you can do it. I knew that I could learn it, and that the students could learn it. They're coming in and learning it, that I could also do it as well. So just learning the console, learning how to operate the reactor, have come fairly, not without challenge, but have come to me a lot sooner within the last 6 months than I thought it would. I would have to say the most challenging is going to be, the actual theory and that stuff, which are things that I'm, actually studying on, and those are things that I want for myself. So I'm actually, taking on those challenges myself and making sure that I learn those things. But I've always been someone, I like to challenge myself in different areas. I don't just want to learn a job. I want to go kind of above and beyond, and some other things that I find a little bit not as much challenging, but that I want to know, is I would love to know everything everyone else knows. And so I know, like you said, that comes with time. And I think, just as far as even any advice for anyone else that might ever consider changing a role or taking on a new position, is that, you just have to go into it knowing that you're not going to know everything, that some things, especially when you do something like this, you step out of your, I don't know if a comfort zone is the right word, but, just stepping out and trying something different, you're going to have a lot of challenges. But if you know that going in, I think you can overcome all of that. Just learning about the reactor, the control rods, the regulating rod, just everything about the reactor, that stuff has come pretty quicker than I thought. But the theory, a lot of the equations, a lot of the things I want to learn, can be a little bit more challenging. So it's kind of the opposite of what I thought, of what I thought would be easier for me, and what I thought would be more challenging has been quite the opposite. So it was a nice surprise. And no day is really alike, so I really enjoy that as well.
Hey, Rebecca. So I have a question for you. So extending Dr. McDevitt's question a little bit further out, during this time that you made these changes, it was a very stressful time, I think, for everyone, just because of COVID and all the situation. It was a interesting time. And so not only did we have those issues to deal at work, but you as a wife and a mother, you probably had some issues at home as far as having to deal with new arrangements, kids being home all day. I think your husband is an educator, so he may have been home a little bit more than usual. So I know for many of us, that was a lot of adjustment. And I want to know what your family learned about you during this time. Have they made any comments about your choice to make a change or who you are? Have they noticed any changes about you, or maybe not even changes, but just things about you that you've always known about yourself, that others have always known about yourself, but maybe your family is just now realizing that about you as a professional?
That is a very good question and a good observation. And I actually have something to contribute to that. My littlest child, he's 10, and he was probably the first one to kind of have a comment towards the change. And he was actually able to come up here one evening and take a look at the reactor. He actually got a little insider peek, and he was like, wow, this is so cool. You have the coolest job ever, Mom. So he just thinks that it's the coolest thing in the world. My husband, if I try to go home and just talk about my day, like he just gets lost, I'm like, do you even understand what I'm talking about? And he's like, not really, but he just has such an appreciation for me. Especially working home during COVID, even, prior to this, he was just like, wow, I really have this appreciation for you and everything that you do. I could not do the things that you do. Or my kids would come into the room in the home office and be like, Mom, we feel so sorry for you. The way that it appears, it's not really usually as it appears, but it's just so funny from a kid's point of view. In other words, they think Mom works very hard, and I think they're pretty proud, and I think that's really important as a mom or a parent, just as a person, but definitely as a parent, to also just show your kids that anything is possible and how to go through change, whether it works or not. Any kind of leap of faith that you take, it may work, it may not work, it might be for you, it may not be. You're going to go through challenges, you're going to have stressful, hard days, you're going to have great days and triumphs, and you're going to get to come home and say, I did this today, I finally did it, and they get to see that, and that's real, and it's important. And I think, that's the type of person that I am and that I want to be for them, and hopefully they'll learn something from it. But other people, like I've had just kind of other coworkers maybe just kind of say, hey, how'd you go from there to there, or why, or, and it might, I just understand that not everyone has I think there's different styles of thinking. There's a kind of an inside the box thinking or outside the box thinking. And I think I've definitely considered myself more of an outside of the box thinker, or just there's no limits, just try it all, see what happens and just do your best. But I hope that answered your question.
What you did perfectly. And I want to thank you for saying yes, because for so many reasons, we wanted to talk to you in this way. You're part of the creation of this whole podcast anyway. And so it's good, like Travis said, to hear you, see you on the other side. But really, it was so important for us to have you on because you are a team mate, you're a team member, and it's good to see that you have been able to maneuver, take on some huge new changes and responsibilities, and do so gracefully. And you've done it with bravery and courage and all the things, but just so lovely. And I just hope, and as I suspected, your family was noticing that about you too. And so it's good to hear. So thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
I had a question. You said your family almost all have their own businesses, or they're all very entrepreneurial. They go through challenges and tribulations just in that kind of sense. And then your parents even having especially your father, having the extra challenge of only having a sixth grade education. How important is it for you to exude that role model that your family has done for you, and now you for your kids, and showing that?
That's a very good question. And I was actually thinking about that while we were talking. It's very important for me to exude that to my children, but it's equally as important to me to exude that to my parents, especially my dad. My dad is very proud of me. My dad is proud for me to be working at Texas A&M, period. It's a big deal to him. I mean, to him, it's everything. My dad actually had the opportunity when he was younger in his welding career to take on, I think they wanted him to teach a class at A&M, but I think he was too afraid. I think he, just that fear of the unknown. And so he stuck with what he knew and is very successful at it. I think that's very hard to come by these days as well. So I'm very, very proud of him. But I think he's very proud of me. And, I'm really hoping to get him up here one day to hopefully give him a tour. But it's very important to me to reflect back to him what I've learned from him.
Well, I can't imagine they'd be any more, or could be any more proud of what you've been able to accomplish, especially going through all the changes and challenges that you have. So that's really awesome. So kind of leading along with that, going through those challenges, do you have a sort of rock or an experience that you kind of grasp onto to get you through those challenges, that you refer back to, or you lean on, that have kind of defined your definition of sticking through it and persevering?
Well, I've worked in many professions for many years. I won't tell you how many. I do have several things daily that help me to get through and persevere. I'm sure when I was younger, it was my children that really, especially my oldest child, when I was a single mother, definitely. I remember sitting at an office job. I worked there for about 10 years. I worked in every department they had because they didn't want me to leave, which was a great honor. So they're like, well, let's just move you to this department. But I remember sitting at my desk one day and thinking, I'm never going to get paid any more than I'm getting paid. Like, I'm never going to go any further than here. I need to go to college, And so my children definitely have motivated me and pushed me to persevere, because I think I've really kind of kept that single parent mindset kind of stays with you, that I have to provide and I have to push myself. And I really am a person that pushes myself. With that comes a person that, because I push myself, I kind of push others a little bit too. I'm a little bit pushy, not in a bad way. But I definitely am a person that likes to help push people to succeed, or do something positive, or just help them to overcome maybe a fear or a challenge. So on the daily, I reach out to friends, even, other friends that are working or having challenges. If I may say so, we pray together. We vent together. We discuss our challenges together, and we lean on each other. Often I find I'm usually the rock for them, but that really helps me too. It just helps me to feel like I'm being strong for someone else. My main rock and support next to like my husband and my children is just my own higher power, and that is probably the main thing that gets me through every day. And I come to work in a great mood, and I leave here in a great mood, knowing that no matter what, that's never going to change. And so I know with that I can get through anything. That's my main driving force. And to be quite honest, if I didn't have such an amazing group of people to work with, that I feel probably also have the same, higher power driving behind them. I don't know if I'd be as successful, but I work with a great group of people, and that has really helped motivate me towards more success within myself.
That's great. Thank you. Kind of leading off of that even more, is there any sort of advice that you would give, to, I guess that you do give to your children, going through, challenges and changes, tribulations, or, even in high school, going from, like, for me personally, a big change that I had to really decide was baseball. Like, I played baseball my entire life. I grew up knowing that I was going to be a professional baseball player. Didn't work out, obviously. But in high school, I had to make the big change. All right, this isn't going to be my career path. I need to find something else to focus on, and something different that will develop me into something else. And so those types of challenges or decisions happened in high school and even before that for students. And so I was wondering, what kind of advice did you give to your kids that may have gone through that, or what would you give to students in that sort of scenario?
Well, I actually, and honestly, with your story, my husband actually shares the same story with you. So that hits very, very close to home. He was also a baseball star and went to college for baseball. But also that's what he wanted to do, and kind of put all of his eggs in that basket. But then was kind of like, now what? And so I guess the only advice that I can give is something that I've probably tried to live by, and I don't even know if it's intentionally or just maybe how I'm created, but is to just know that you can, anything out in the world you can do if you put your mind to it. Anything that you desire. Someone taught me once, anything that you want or desire, you can obtain. It doesn't matter what it is. You can obtain it if you want it bad enough. So it literally doesn't matter what the subject is. So the world it really is your oyster. It's out there for you. Not to be afraid to fail. That you're braver than you think. You're stronger than you are. You prove it time and time again to yourself. I mean, if we look back on times that we thought we couldn't do something, or when we've come out of a bad place, we're still here, and that's definitely something that I would point out to my children, that we've made it. You made it. You thought you wouldn't make it then, and here you are. And I am a pushy person, so I push my kids to do things that I know that they're strong at. One of my sons is an amazing swimmer, and I feel like he was blessed with that talent, and not everyone has that. And I think it's important to guide your kids and to motivate others in ways that that they have strengths, because oftentimes they don't know that about themselves, especially when they're younger. We often can see things about others that they can't. And I mean, as long as you have good intentions for that person and helping them along, I'm definitely one to push them in the way that they might need to go slightly. The rest of the way really is their decision to make, but you have to give them a good foundation to work with, and help them to know what you see in them, and that they can, and once they do those things, they learn they could do a whole lot more than they thought, or just be proud of themselves for even trying. I know I'm proud of myself for even trying. proud of myself for even applying, proud of myself for just going for it, you know. Every step forward is something you can be proud of, and you may not be ready to go the whole way yet, but any step forward is progress.
So, Rebecca, I have 2 items. First thing is I am challenging you to not refer to yourself as being pushy. Okay. You are persistent, ma'am. And that is why you are being interviewed today. So let's take pushy out of the vocabulary, ma'am, when you are referring to yourself or how you encourage that in your children. It is persistence. Okay. Number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, I want to pull on Travis's question just a little bit further. You know, you talked about being a single mother when you were younger and having your little one for some time by yourself. And I'm just wondering, when you think of those years, and I know you mentioned earlier, when you think back, you don't know how you did it, but during those times, what's the saying? The days are long, but the years are short. So I'm sure as you were just going through day to day, you knew exactly what you were doing. You know, I mean, as you look back, you don't know how you did it, but you know during that time. But I'm wondering, what would you say now with your wisdom and your knowledge and your few years more of experience? What would you say to yourself as that young person with all that responsibility, being that single parent, or what would you had wished somebody would have said to you at that time, just to lift you up when it was so challenging?
Okay. I definitely would look back to myself then and say, hey, relax a little bit. Don't stress so much, and you're going to be okay. Definitely would be a more laid back person, and just, you know, probably not just be so worried and afraid. I think I had a lot of, you know, being alone, it's, you know, you don't know what's ahead of you. And that's a lot of pressure. But hey, I'm doing okay. And I think I knew that I would. It's just, you know, it's just that fear of the unknown, I guess. And I was young, you know. You don't always know what you want. I don't know if you ever really know what you want. Hey, I'm in my 40s and still, you know, still going strong. So, yeah, I definitely would say not to stress as much, just relax and have a lot more fun, and make sure I seek out the right things in life and with me and my son, and not worry so much about all the little things, you know, just that I'm brave and strong. And I don't know. That's a very good question. Very good question.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for your time today. I want to give you an opportunity too, if you had any last comments or thoughts. We've really enjoyed your thoughts and experience and your words today, and I hope our listeners also gain some insight and can take from your words of wisdom.
Well, I just wanted to thank all of you. Y'all are a wonderful work family, and it's been very enjoyable to be on the other side of the spectrum, and I really appreciate you guys and this interview.
Well, that's going to be it for us today. So thank you so much for attending and listening to our podcast, and hopefully see you next time. Thank you for listening to our podcast. The Nuclear Power Institute is a joint center with Texas A&M University and the Texas A&M Engineering Experiment Station, and is a component of the Nuclear Engineering and Science Center. For more information about our center or about our guest speaker today, please visit our website at npi.tamu.edu and look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you.